U.S. Senator Debbie Stabenow
Sure.
joins us from Washington, D.C. Thank you, Ms. Stabenow, for taking time.
My pleasure.
Let's start off with the national parks. You sit on the Committee on Energy and Natural Resources, which in the Senate handles the national park system. There's been criticism over cuts to the parks. In fiscal 15, there's been a modest budget increase, but critics say that's hundreds of millions of dollars short, and that shortage in funding is impacting parks here in the UP. What kind of increases can we expect in the UP for those national parks?
Well, I support, obviously, increasing the resources for our national parks, which are so very important. We're really in a debate right now about whether we're going to see a bipartisan agreement on a budget that makes sense for the country and for Michigan, or whether there are going to be continued arbitrary across the board cuts to things like our National Park Service. I oppose that. I'm pushing very, very hard to make sure we have the resources both to maintain the parks, the accessibility for people in the parks, and this is all part of not only our way of life but tourism for us in Michigan and certainly the UP. So we don't know where exactly it's going to end, but I'm pushing to make sure that we are giving the kind of investments we need to for the national parks.
Now, the construction of a new lock in the Sioux has been talked about for 20 years or more. Is there funding now earmarked in the federal budget for the building of a new lock?
Well, I was just up at the Sioux and had an opportunity to get an update, and there is no doubt in my mind, and in fact I have felt this for a long time, I've been supporting the second lock. We're at a point now with the Army Corps of Engineers where they need to complete a study to make an official recommendation. We're working on the funding. We've identified funding for them to do that. It needs to be done as quickly as possible. This is about our economy when we think about all the goods that are going through the locks, and it's also about our national security. So I'm working with our congressional delegation, and we're pushing very hard to move the Army Corps as quickly as possible on this.
When would construction start?
Well, we're a ways away from construction, unfortunately. I mean, the Army Corps process is, in my judgment, a slow process, certainly. And so we're in a spot where they've got to complete a study and then it becomes part of their next budget cycle. And so we're a few years away before we actually are going to see this going like we want it to, but we've got to light some fires and get them going as quickly as possible.
Now, there's been confusion at times over the federal government's nutrition guidelines, and there are changes in store for the fall in the school lunch program. Do you see any of that coming this fall?
Well, the good news is that 95% of the schools across the country are meeting the new healthy foods guidelines. Certainly all across Michigan, we have children that are eating more fruits and vegetables. They are getting healthier opportunities for breakfast and lunch and after school. And so I want to make sure we keep that going, that we support the schools that need a little flexibility to get there. But the guidelines require half a cup of fruit or vegetable for a child at lunch or at breakfast, and I don't think that's too much to ask. The good thing is that we're finding that in the last 5 years, children are eating 16% more vegetables and 23% more fruits in the schools as part of their diet. Childhood obesity is a huge issue. It's a huge health issue. Juvenile diabetes, all of the other issues that come with being overweight. It's now become a national security issue as well, with people not being able to be physically fit to sign up to serve us in the armed services. So we want to keep this going. We want our children to have every opportunity to be healthy, get a healthy start, and make sure we're supporting our schools to be able to have the flexibility they need to do it.
It's a ways off, but looking to the future, are you considering running for re-election in 2018?
Well, at this point, I have every reason to want to continue my service for Michigan. You know, I'm born and raised in Michigan. I'm really lucky. My whole family's here, including now 4 little grandchildren. And when I think about the future and the fact that High on my list is protecting our Great Lakes now as co-chair of the bipartisan Great Lakes Task Force, and making sure we're making things and growing things, manufacturing, agriculture, so high on my list as well, and making sure everybody's got a fair shot to succeed, which is what we're all about. In Michigan, working hard and having opportunity. As long as I can make a difference there for my own family and all the families in Michigan, I'd like to keep doing that.
I guess, is there anything else you'd like to mention to your constituents back here in Upper Michigan?
Well, the one thing that I would add, I'm laser focused right now on the efforts to make sure we are continuing to protect the Great Lakes. We've seen lake levels go back up, which is a good thing, but we are continually threatened by the Asian carp, by other invasive species. We have great research being done in the UP, folks that are really making a difference through our universities, and we need to continue to do that and support those efforts in all of our universities as we are doing research. But I'm very focused on making sure those carp don't get into our Great Lakes and other invasive species as well, because it's not only about our way of life, it's about our economy.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for taking time to speak with us this afternoon.